endovascular AVF creation, percutaneous AVF creation. It's incredibly exciting. It's 50 years since the description of the first surgical created fistula, and that made a major difference to patients requiring dialysis and really pushed the field forward. But we've not really expanded on what is not a great option. The surgical fistula has poor outcomes, failure to mature, long-term interventions, and the endovascular AVF, that is a new device over the last 4 or 5 years and really coming to its own with initial data being very promising, really looks like a step forward for patients requiring AV access for hemodialysis. There are 2 devices that have been introduced pretty much at the same time in parallel. One, the ellipsis device, has a major study called the pivotal study, who the main author is Jeffrey Hull from the USA. He will be at Charing Cross, and he's presented data that shows actually excellent procedural success and good medium-term data. We haven't yet got long-term data in terms of years, but certainly up to a year, these devices appear to be giving us much better outcomes than surgical fistulas. The other device, the LINC device, which was previously called the LINC device, has a number of studies. The NEAT study by Diraj Rajan, again, describes excellent procedural success and excellent patencies up to a year after the device has been used. In our own practice, there is the European endovascular study which uses the LINC device. We're yet to report on this and the trial's still recruiting, but from our own experience in Birmingham, we've actually got very good results. I think that longer-term data from these observational studies would be nice to see. It'd be nice to see if these fistulas have held up over 2 to 3 years, and there are patients out there with these fistulas that are still working after that time. So it would be nice to see an update on what's been done, what further interventions were required, and whether or not these fistulas did have the same good outcomes and better outcomes than surgical fistulas longer term. Both these studies that we've discussed are just observational studies. There's no controls. The data they've used to control against in terms of comparator data is from registry data. Most of it's US data. We know that across countries the data is not actually consistent. Some of the failure rates in the US are a lot higher than we'd expect to see in European studies or certainly Japanese studies. So it would be really nice if both these devices could be put to the scrutiny of a randomized controlled trial. Whether that'll ever happen, I'm not sure. Surgical fistulas are a single vessel that usually have high flow, and high flow is actually a problem. We think as surgeons, if something's doing big numbers, it must be better than something doing small numbers, but that's not quite the case, and some of the complications are related to high flow in these patients, whether they're cardiovascular, whether they're related to stenoses, whether they're related to aneurysms. We see all of that in surgical fistulas. We don't seem to be seeing that in endovascular fistulas. The flow isn't as much. This has its own special challenges, particularly with cannulation and teaching dialysis nurses how to cannulate these fistulas, as they feel different, they look different. But it may be that lower flow, around about 600 to 900 mils per minute, is actually beneficial to the vessels that are going through. Because we've got to remember, a fistula is a very artificial system. The veins weren't designed to have that flow rate, so therefore they react by having stenoses and requiring further interventions.